I'm from a scientific background, so I always tread very warily when I talk about the forces or energies or spirits that are within an old environment. But a lot of the people that have a lot to do with this building will tell you that they are fairly convinced this building has its own force. Now let's just call it a force. I was looking for space that I could utilise for my ever-growing dental practice. I didn't want that space to be four walls and a blank canvas. I wanted that space to sing to me. And I looked for almost 3 years to find that space. And towards the end of my journey, I was convinced through what I can only call an epiphany that my dental practice would end up in a church. And so one morning I walked around the city block looking for my church. And I quite distinctly recall walking into Scott's Church and walking to St. Paul's Cathedral and wondering if there was a little nook or a crevice that I could hire. And in the end, when I walked across the front of the Manchester Unity building, I looked up and I saw some real estate signs in the windows, and I mumbled to myself, "Kia, you found your church." I always like to fondly tell a story. I'm not sure if I'm jinxing myself or anything, but I'd like to fondly tell a story about my mother, who I proudly brought through level 1 prior to its refurbishment when it had just been sold, when it had just had its previous tenants move out. And it was effectively quite a derelict space, very heavily, very degraded and broken down. And I recall her shedding a tear down the corridor, and I said, "Mum, why are you crying?" And she said, "Son, I think you're going to die in here." And I think at the time what she meant was the fact that the amount of work that she foresaw ahead of her just in the renovations and refurbishments of level 1 greatly concerned her. This is a boardroom that 80 years later is a perfectly functional boardroom. There is no other boardroom that I would rather that I would put up against this of a modern era and say that boardroom competes. In essence, this boardroom is the envy of many chairmen of many large companies throughout Australia.